UK set to officially recognize Palestinian state. The UK government, under Prime Minister Keir Starmer, is expected to announce its recognition of the State of Palestine, diverging from past policy despite opposition from the US. This decision is part of broader diplomatic shifts amid ongoing conflict in Gaza and debates over Israel's settlement expansion in the West Bank. 2. US raises H-1B visa fee to $100,000, causing global pushback. The Trump administration has introduced a new annual fee of $100,000 for new H-1B visa applications. This policy has created confusion, anger, and concern among foreign workers, especially from India and China. 3. Israeli strikes kill 31 in Gaza City amid tank advance. Israeli forces struck residential areas in Gaza City, resulting in at least 31 deaths, including civilians, as operations expanded and tanks advanced into densely populated neighborhoods. Thousands are displaced amidst growing humanitarian concerns. Russia offers to extend New START nuclear arms treaty by 1 year. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said he is ready to roll over the New START treaty with the U.S. for another year after its expiry date, 5th of February 2026, provided the U.S. agrees to the same. This would maintain limits on the number of deployed strategic nuclear warheads and delivery systems for both countries. Number 2. World leaders expected to formally recognize a Palestinian state at United Nations Summit. Ahead of the UN General Assembly, a summit convened by France and Saudi Arabia will see several countries, including Britain, Canada, Australia, Portugal, and possibly others, formally recognize Palestine as a state. Israel has criticized this move as harmful and has warned of potential consequences. Oil prices climb amid rising tensions in Europe and the Middle East. Oil futures rose slightly in Asian markets, driven by European airspace violations allegedly by Russia, airstrikes near western Ukraine, and increasing diplomatic tensions from recent recognitions of Palestine by several Western countries. However, the price increase is being moderated by concerns over supply, elevated inventory levels in China and the U.S., and weak demand forecasts. 1. Oil pipeline deal between Iraq and Kurdish region restarts supply. A preliminary agreement between Iraq's federal government and the Kurdish regional government has been reached to restart an oil pipeline that's been shut since March 2023. This will restore about 230,000 barrels per day of supply through Turkey. As a result, oil prices have dropped slightly amid concerns of oversupply and economic uncertainty. 2. UN chief warns of global disruption and human suffering. At the opening of the 80th United Nations General Assembly, Secretary-General Antonio Guterres issued a strong warning. The world is entering an era of reckless disruption and relentless human suffering, fueled by inequality, impunity, and global indifference. He urged leaders to choose cooperation over conflict and emphasized peace, citing crises like the wars in Gaza and Sudan. 3. U.S. to sanction International Criminal Court (ICC) over Israel war crimes investigations. The United States is preparing to impose broad sanctions on the International Criminal Court in connection to its investigations into alleged Israeli war crimes. This marks a significant escalation in tension between U.S. policy and international judicial bodies. 1. Zelensky warns at UN, Ukraine is only the first. At the 80th United Nations General Assembly, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky delivered a forceful message, cautioning that the war in Ukraine could set a dangerous global precedent unless the world stands firm against aggression. 2. Stocks tumble globally. Dollar gains after Fed's cautious tone. Global stock markets fell as the U.S. dollar strengthened, following remarks by Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell signaling that rate cuts may not be imminent. In Europe, defense stocks rose on renewed optimism about support for Ukraine after shifting rhetoric from U.S. leadership. Number 3. Italy sends Navy ship to help Gaza aid flotilla after drone attack. After a flotilla carrying aid to Gaza was attacked by drones in international waters near Greece, Italy deployed a Navy frigate to provide protection and assistance for vessels in distress. Dallas ICE office shooting. A gunman opened fire at a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement (ICE) facility in Dallas, killing one detainee and injuring 2 others before taking his own life. The perpetrator had reportedly written "anti-ICE" on an unused bullet, indicating possible motive. 2. Former French President Sarkozy, convicted Nicolas Sarkozy, was sentenced to 5 years in prison after being found guilty of criminal conspiracy tied to illicit campaign financing from Libya. While several other charges were dismissed, the verdict marks a major fall from grace for the once powerful leader. 3. Zelensky warns of AI arms race at UNGE, Argentina gets U.S. backing. At the United Nations General Assembly, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky cautioned about the risks of AI-driven weaponization and the fragility of global alliances amid ongoing war. Meanwhile, Argentina secured financial support from the U.S. to bolster its economic reform agenda ahead of upcoming elections. UN Security Council to vote on delaying return of sanctions on Iran. Russia and China introduced a resolution to postpone the reimposition of UN sanctions on Iran by 6 months. These sanctions were set to automatically return following concerns over Iran's nuclear activities. The resolution faces an uphill battle in the Security Council, as it requires 9 affirmative votes and no veto by permanent members. 2. Donald Trump's new pharmaceutical tariffs shake global markets. U.S. President Donald Trump announced a 100% tariff on branded pharmaceutical imports. The move triggered immediate reactions in global markets, especially in Australia, where a major biotech firm saw its value plummet by $1 billion. 3. UAE pushes tourism ambitions ahead of World Tourism Day. As the UAE prepares to celebrate World Tourism Day on the 27th of September, it is spotlighting record growth in visitor numbers, infrastructure investments, and its evolving role as a global tourism hub. 1. Zelensky accuses Hungary of drone incursion into Ukraine airspace. Ukrainian President Zelensky claimed that reconnaissance drones entered Ukrainian airspace from Hungary, raising tensions between Kyiv and Budapest. The accusation drew a sharp rebuttal from Hungary's foreign minister. In response, 11 European nations convened to discuss establishing a drone wall along the EU's eastern flank, reflecting growing concern over cross-border drone activity and hybrid threats. 2. UN High Seas Treaty to come into force in early 2026. The landmark UN High Seas Treaty, Agreement on the Conservation and Sustainable Use of Marine Biological Diversity Beyond National Jurisdictions, has crossed the threshold of 60 ratifications and is slated to become active in early 2026. This treaty enables creation of marine protected areas, mandates environmental impact assessments on activities in high seas, and governs access to marine genetic resources. The edition of the Global Citizen Festival is held on the Great Lawn in Central Park, New York, featuring performances by big names like Shakira and Cardi B. The event combines music and activism to spotlight global goals and social issues. 2. Lavrov confirms Putin visit to India in December. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov confirmed plans for President Vladimir Putin to visit New Delhi in December 2025, reaffirming the strength of India-Russia ties. 3. Strict security measures ahead of India-Pakistan Asia Cup final in Dubai. With the high-profile India versus Pakistan Asia Cup 2025 final approaching, Dubai police issued stern warnings to fans. Strict entry protocols, banned items, and potential jail or heavy fines for violations. Ukraine proposes joint air defense shield with allies. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky put forward a plan to build a joint aerial defense shield with its allied countries to counter ongoing threats and incursions from Russia. 2. Israeli forces advance ahead of Trump-Netanyahu Gaza peace talks. Ahead of a planned meeting between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, Israeli forces have intensified operations in Gaza. Trump is hosting Netanyahu at the White House, where the agenda includes a 21-point Gaza peace proposal. 3. Russia withdraws from European Anti-Torture Convention. President Vladimir Putin has signed a law formally withdrawing Russia from the European Convention for the Prevention of Torture, a move signaling a toughening of Russia's stance toward European human rights mechanisms.